All right, so today we're going to shoot the assembly of a utility cabinet. It doesn't matter if it's a utility cabinet deep, a shallow one, an open bookshelf that we sell, other room cabinet, all the tall cabinets assembled the same way as we're about to show you. All that really changes is either the cabinet depth or the location of this middle partition. Sometimes you're down here, might have 3 drawers at the bottom. It's all the same utility cabinet assembly. So we're going to get started on this. Stay with us. All right, before we get into the assembly of this UCD 3096, it's a real tall cabinet. This assembly will work for pretty much any of the utility cabinet series, whether you're doing a reverse where the short doors are on the bottom or the short doors are on the top, like this one. You can see the frame behind me. The assembly is pretty much the same. Couple things to note on this label. We always want to introduce how to read the labeling on this because it's going to help you locate your cabinet. I found this tall box. First thing I want to do is drop down to the 3rd line down. It says customer item ID. That 3rd line is your indicator as to where on the quote that you went through with your or your cabinet joint coach, where this is on your quote. So in this case, this says customer item ID is number 11. So I ran over to the cabinet quote and I see that the item number 11 in the self notes field, which is just at the very bottom of your your little descriptor of that cabinet, says UCD extended style left, and all in caps it says self note number 11. That tells me what this cabinet is. It's a UCD 3096 butt door extended style left. Now I know what frame to go find. So remember, with overlay cabinetry, the frames are generally packed with the cabinets unless it's a custom oddball. In the case of inset, the frames are packed separately with the doors because they're made in Pennsylvania with the cabinet doors and fitted there inside the frames. I got to make them as a match set, so they cannot pack the front frame with the cabinet box. So I have to go find that. And if you saw from the series of videos we shot for the Getting Started series, one of the first things we do is organize our front frame. So I was able to go find my frame for this UCD 3096. So now I know what I'm building. I'm going to go off camera here for a minute. Go get yourself a cup of coffee while I unwrap this and inventory my parts, and we'll come back and show you how to build this mother. Stay tuned. All right, so I've got my parts inventoried. Behind me, you can see I got a left and right side and a back separate box over here. I've got the tops and bottoms and the middle platform, and then I have the cabinet frame in front of me. What I'm going to work on now is putting the hinges on. So if you're doing overlay, you can fast forward this video to the point where I start actually assembling the box. Because you're an inset customer, you're going to want to pay attention because we want to put our hinge brackets on now. So these hinges snap on to this bracket, and the bracket mounts to the back side of the front frame. It makes it really difficult to put the bracket on after the cabinet's already assembled. So we want to go ahead and put these all on now. I want to show you that operation. This jig here is made by Bloom. It's called the Plate Mate. You can buy it for about $100 from anywhere on Amazon. I got this one from Outwater Hardware through Amazon. And it's really nifty because you can adjust with this screw in and out. You can adjust this to 3 1/8 inches exactly from the screw head to the center. And that becomes your guide to actually locate your hinge. So let me show you this top one. I'm going to do this top door. This door gets 3 hinges on it on each side. I'm going to put the top door hinge on. Let me show you how this works. We run it around the front frame, slide it all the way up until the screw is contacting the member of the front frame. So when I push that all the way up, there's a little V notch here, and I am exactly 3 1/8 from that notch to this flat surface, and that puts me right in the center of the hinge cup on the door. So I take a little orange lever and compress the jig around the hinge. I grab the screw gun that has the drill bit that came with my Plate Mate, and there's 2 holes here that are at the right angle. They go at a slight angle. They're at the right angle for me. And I'm just going to drill that out. Unclamp my Plate Mate. Go to my hardware box. If you recall from the Getting Started videos, we had separated out already all of our drawer glides, hinges, drawer glide brackets. All that is separated with our screws and cups. So I know exactly what hinge or screw I'm looking for. The hinge bracket has 2 U-shaped slots. They're not holes that these screws go in, they're slots. So the bracket goes on this way, so I can actually get these screws started. If I follow the hole with the slight angle, the screw will guide right in. I'm just going to get it started. And then I take my bracket and I slide it onto those screws until the shoulder of the hinge bracket is right up tight to the front frame. I'm going to hold it there with my finger. Oops. And go. You can hear the impact driver going off there. So now I got a hinge bracket on. It's the same exact operation for the rest of the hinges. I'm going to go ahead and do that. The only one that's different on these 3 hinge cabinets is there's no locator here for this middle one. I'm going to have to measure to find the dead center between the front frame opening. I got to find the dead center, and then I can clamp my plate mate with the notch for the center line. I can clamp it right on my pencil line. That's the only difference. Otherwise, everything I just showed you on this hinge will work on the center ones. So I'm going to go mount my other hinge brackets. We'll come back and join you in a second to show you the rest of this assembly. Okay, we're back. You can see I've got all my hinge brackets on. Again, for these center ones, I had to measure. It was 56-inch opening, 28 inches to the center. I struck a pencil line, lined up the notch on my bloom jig, or you can just find the center line by using a little hole in the center of this bracket is the dead center. And just do your pilot holes, and then you go. Remember, if you ever have to do these pilot holes and you don't have that bloom plate mate, it's just 3 1/8 to the center of the hole from the outer edge. You want to find that center line, just set the jig there, and you can drill your own holes. But it's a little bit of pencil work and measuring, so we like that plate mate. I'm going to get going with the assembly on the box now. I got my tall sides on the wall behind me. So I'm going to go ahead and run a bead of glue, which is typical of every cabinet we build. We've got to glue that front frame, a nice, steady bead of glue. And I also like to do this outer shoulder where these hinge brackets aren't getting in my way. Just do this outer shoulder a little bit. You're going to go through a couple of bottles of this glue on an average assembly. So Lowe's will like you by the time you're done. And you can see this foam that I'm working on. This is actually the foam wrapping that the front frame itself came in. So what we like to do is unwrap the frame and just let it sit on this foam because it's a great protector for your work surface. Your cabinet face is down right now, so we don't want to scratch it. And then when we're done with this particular cabinet, we throw that foam away because now it's got glue on it. We don't want to get that on the next cabinet. So every cabinet basically, has its own nice foam to work on. So what you want to do here is this outer shoulder. So at the top and bottom, I want to glue the contact points where the cabinet panel, top, middle, or bottom, are going to strike the actual face frame. That's a contact point we want to have glued. So now I'm all glued up. Set my messy glue bottle over here. I'm going to grab my first cabinet side, which in this case, you're not going to be able to really see me because I'm going to work from inside the cabinet here. This is really easier done with 2 people, but I'm going to try it with 1. See if I'm a man. All right. We're going to line this up as best we can with the top and bottom. And now, because I'm working by myself, I do have to do a little bit of adjustment because what we want to make sure of is that the cabinet bottom is lined up with the front frame dead on. So I'm going to have to do a little tapping here to get this to line up perfectly. Okay. She's spot on now. I'll sink it with my mallet. These rubber mallets are gold. And hopefully that'll just sit there for a minute. Grab my other panel. Same song, different verse. We're just going to lay this panel into the slots. Okay. And tap it in. It's actually good to show you that you can actually assemble these cabinets with 1 person if you're working hard at it. Now I get 3 partitions for the top, middle, and bottom. 2 of them are finished on one side. 1 is finished on both sides. The one that's finished on both sides is obviously for the middle. So I'm going to start there. That will hold my cabinet sides up if I can get this middle partition in. So I'm going to go ahead. You can't see this, but I'm going to start in the middle of the dovetail. I'm going to go up with my bead of glue. Same on every cabinet we build. You've seen this operation on other cabinets, I'm sure, from our videos. Now I'm going to get up on my table. These assembly tables are really nice if you have the fortitude to make a 4x8 plywood table with some 4x4 legs. They're really nice to work on because you're at knee height. So I have my finished sides, both sides are finished, but I have my splines down. So I line up my dovetails. And I'm just going to push this panel into place. And I can hear it kind of click. It's locked into the front frame below it. What we often have happen is sometimes these cabinet sides want to walk out of the front frame. So periodically, just make sure you're seated real good. I'm going to do the same exact operation on the bottom and top panels. Half a bead of glue from the starting at the center of the dovetail. You don't want to do too much or you'll just mound that glue up at the bottom and you'll have a real mess to clean up after the assembly is done. And I grab one of these partitions and I have an unfinished side and a finished side. I want to put the finished side in. Line up my dovetails and push. Okay, I'm locked in. I heard my click. I grab my mallet and make sure everything's seated still. And sometimes with these tall cabinets, you want to flip them over on their back at the final operation and tap the frame on to make sure you're seated. And I appear to be in everywhere now. So I'm going to grab my last panel, top and bottom. And I'm going to travel down to the south end of my cabinet. I already glued it, so I don't need that. Finish side in, splines down. Remember, finish side in. You'll be really upset if you put your unfinished side to the inside of the cabinet. And she clicked in. So now, we're going to run glue all around the perimeter where our cabinet back is going to go on. So I'm going to start way up here and run a bead of glue all the way along where that cabinet back contacts. I'm going to put it on the top edge of all my partition panels because that's where the cabinet back is going to contact. All right. Last step is I got my cabinet back. Here's my top. Here's my upper opening. So that slot is going to line up with my center partition, top and bottom. So I got to make sure I have my panel oriented correctly. And I'm just going to line up those slots. On your rubber mallet, you want to just sink that. And what you want is 1/4 of an inch. You'll hear when that panel is on, it actually bottoms out. It makes a thudding noise. That one's in. That one's not. Now it is. So that's seated all the way across. I can see I got a nice 1/4 of an inch. I'm good right across here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my panel locked in place at the top and bottom just so things don't move around. I'm going to put a pin here. A pin at the bottom. And what I like to do is take a pencil, find the center of, I'll start up here, find the center of your cabinet back. Line up the pencil and just use your finger as a guide, or you can use a straight edge if you need to. And what we're going to use this for is a nailing line because we want to pin the cabinet sides to the cabinet back. All right. Now what I'm going to do is follow that line all the way across, just every 5-6 inches, 3-4 inches, whatever you want, because this is not the only place you're nailing. You'll see in a second. I'm going to do the same thing on my other side. Okay. So now what I've done is I've pinned my cabinet sides, tied up to my cabinet back. Now I can take my gun and do the second operation to hold my back on. You're not going to do this if this is a finished side. You don't want to do what I just showed you here with the pins in the side, because you'd see it. You'd only hold the back on the way I'm about to show you. Take the heel of the gun, put it right on the cabinet back, and run the nose of that gun right up into the corner. You want the gun at an angle because you're trying to toenail the back onto the cabinet sides. Now about every 4 inches, you're going to run a pin. See how close I am to getting out. That was my last one. You're going to go through a lot of pins on these big cabinets too. These staples are just phenomenal for this cabinet assembly. I'm going to do it on my other back. Come on. Remember, you got glue all the way around. So that all you're really doing is holding everything in place so that glue sets up. But there's a lot of fasteners in there now. So now I'm going to go along my scribe line about every 3 or 4 inches. Okay. Now, what I want to do next is find my center line. I should have marked it if I was thinking. What I would have wanted to do is take my pencil, and it's so much easier when you know where this panel is, mark the cabinet box like so, and run a square, just a framing square, on the cabinet back right now, and I can make a line and know where my half-inch back is that I can nail into. I forgot to do that, so I'm going to have to measure it in a moment and do that. But you do want to put 4 or 5 nails across this center partition because you don't want it to bow out on you. So there's a partition in there we got to make sure we nail off. But what I really want to show you next is the inside of the cabinet. So I'm going to go off camera once I pin this up, and I'm going to stand this cabinet up and show you some things. So stick with us. All right. So there's the assembly of the UCD 3096 butt door. Again, we've got our hinge brackets already installed, so we're going to look at that later on. I want to talk about a few cleanup things. One is every panel, we've taken most of them off, but every panel has these stickers on it. Now, these stickers are identifiers basically for this particular panel, whether it's the top, bottom, left, right side, back, whatever. If you have a damage issue, all you need to do is take a picture of this sticker and send that to your cabinet coach who sold you your job. And that information is all they need to get a replacement on the way. So at the very end, when you're sure the cabinet went together well, you can begin peeling the stickers off and chucking them away. Other thing I wanted to bring up was there's one last piece I didn't put on yet. This is just that toe board backer. It goes at the bottom, very bottom, and it's just a nailer. It sits between the cabinet sides, and you can pin it in if you want, or you can leave it out. It's really just to make the final act of putting your finished toe kick strips on when you're actually installing the kitchen easier because you can nail anywhere. Whereas if you don't have this in, you have to nail where the cabinet sides are coming to the ground. So this is nice to put in, but be aware before you put it in what kind of access you may need under the cabinet. Are you going to be putting in a toe kick vent? Are you going to need to put a cabinet shim back there to shim your cabinet up during installation? Because once you put this on during the assembly phase, you've locked off the ability to get back underneath the cabinet. So we typically find ourselves not using these a lot. They come with every cabinet, but you don't have to use it. It's not a structural piece. So that's all we got for you on the UCD 3096. I just say UCD. It's any cabinet. Doesn't matter what the size is. Any tall cabinet we have, no matter where this center partition is, it's going to assemble a lot like this. So if you have any questions, always call your cabinet coach. They can answer any questions you have about your assembly. Number is 888-211-6482. Thanks for watching.